Cool. Yeah. So Graham, thank you very much for joining us today for this Q&A. Graham is a filmmaker from Kirkintilloch, the exotic location not too far from Cumbernauld. And Graham is an accomplished filmmaker, having made 3 feature films and countless shorts. How many shorts have you made, Graham? How many shorts and sketches?
Countless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like 30, something like if you include like all the sort of BBC stuff as well, and yeah, depends on your definition of a short. I'd say like about 4 official shorts, and then like 20 or 30 other ones that are just nonsense.
Nonsense is good though. We like nonsense. So yeah, your first feature film was The Big Slick, and it was. Were you in high school when you made that?
No. I was at a uni.
You were just out of uni, right? Okay.
Yeah, I graduated in like 2009, so it was right at the height of the financial crash at the time, and just could not for the life of me get a job. I was sending out CVs every week, and couldn't even get an interview, and I was just totally fed up. So I think it was about a year or 2 years after I was at uni, I was still working in a cafe, so just decided to like use all my spare time and make a film instead.
And the budget for that was like 200 quid, wasn't it? It was reportedly 200 quid or something.
It was like about 60 of that went on HTV tapes, and then 120 was just on like props, because like none of us knew what we were doing. It was just me and a bunch of high school friends, so nobody even got like expenses weren't even a thing, because it was just like, shut up, you're doing it. There was no food on set. It was a total shambles, but we were just having a laugh, and yeah.
But you guys won a BAFTA for that film.
So we won the BAFTA New Talent Award for writing in 2010 or 11, I think it was.
Congratulations again, 10 years later.
Thanks.
But yeah, that must have been a kind of good kind of I don't know, good bit of encouragement for you guys starting out in your career to get recognised for the writing in that film. And how did that did that give you the drive then to go in and make more films?
Yeah. Well, just to give context to you guys, is the first 2 films I made, I co-wrote with Graham McGee and Keith Grantham, and I directed both of them. And the 3 of us won that award, and that was like a major confidence builder. That was basically all it ended up being. It didn't really help our careers at all, but it gave us confidence, because the script is the only thing that the budget doesn't affect, and that was what we won the award for. Everything else was like really harmed by budget restrictions, like right down to the acting. Like people kind of forget that acting is a budgetary thing as well. But it was just like who we had to hand. Like I was in it, and just all high school friends, and like my mum. I don't know if my gran was in that one, but she was in the one after. And just whatever you can get. And like it looked like shit. It sounded like shit. I remember on a short at the time, I had like a Rode shotgun mic, and we were so like inept that there was like, whenever we're using it, someone would just be holding it in their hand, and like we didn't have like a boom pole or anything. And David McKeach is like a famous Glasgow sound guy. He was an extra on one of these shorts and turned up to set and saw someone like holding the mic, and he was just like, oh my god.
I can just imagine him seeing that and being like totally distraught.
Yeah.
But then you want to make a practical guide to a spectacular suicide, which was your second feature. But again, you were kind of operating in that no budget kind of realm, although you had more money to play with this time. Can you talk me through the process of kind of moving up like a level, I guess, and kind of creating something with a crew and on a low budget, and how you guys managed to achieve what you did?
Yeah. So with The Big Slick, it not only gave us confidence, but it gave us a bit of validation in a sense, particularly with the BAFTA win. It just showed other professionals, or like kind of people at our level that were starting out, that like we meant business and we weren't like, we were serious. And Practical Guide to Spectacular Suicide, they only had a $3,000 budget, which we got through crowdfunding. I think it was more like $4,000 by the time myself and Kirsty, one of the producers, and McGay and Keith, the other two writers, once we'd all chipped in a bit of money as well. It's probably about $4,000, but that just allowed us to, well, first off, we could get people on board that, so for example, Stephen Donnelly, who shot it, he was working as a camera operator at the time, I think, or at least like a maybe camera assist in TV. But he knew his shit, and like he wanted to become a DOP, so that was a good opportunity for him to like step up in a smaller capacity and have something for his show reel. And he had connections that meant we got like free equipment and things. So the budget went on, like 10% of our budget went on hiring a van to put the equipment in. So it's like, you know, a lot of that money doesn't end up on screen. So it was done in the same way as The Big Slick, in that you're just like asking favors. It's like the sets are just like what friends have got like cool flats, or just what can we get access to. And then this time there was money for travel and expenses, which we'd learned about by this point. And we were able to kind of cast locally as well, and actually get aspiring actors who knew what they were doing in it. And everything just got bumped up a level, even though the budget wasn't really that much more. It was just kind of approaching it more seriously, and still like absolutely relying on favors though.
Yeah, and kind of a lot of the connections you kind of made on that film have carried over into Death of a Vlogger as well. Like, you know, kind of actors that were used, you've kind of used people again and things like that, and you've kind of built up that relationship from having worked with people before. And actually, remember at the time when I spoke to you about a practical guide, I'm pretty sure you said that you were never going to make another film again. So I just want to know how you went from I'm never going to make another film again to then making Death of a Vlogger, making Death of a Vlogger a couple of years later, or well, a number of years later.
Well, not only did I say I'll never make another film again, I tried to make a film in between Practical Guide and Death of a Vlogger, and when that went tits up, I said I'd never make another film again. So, and I probably said it after The Big Slick as well. I think it's just normal. The only time I've not said it is after Death of a Vlogger. Actually, well, I had a few days, but it wasn't as serious this time. But it's absolutely punishing. It's a really, really hard road. Like, as you know yourself, even shorts, you know, it's a punishing journey. And usually the times that I've said I'm never doing that again. So with Practical Guide, it was we had our UK premiere at Edinburgh Film Festival, and it got like a mixed review, like mostly positive, but it was the first time in my career that I've ever had bad reviews, because The Big Slick wasn't seen wide enough. Like, if it had been seen wide enough, it'd be, you know, like probably like 10 or 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, but nobody saw it, so I didn't get any bad reviews. But when Practical Guide came out of Edinburgh, it was like quite a public thing, and like reading bad reviews is absolutely crushing, because you spend 2 years on this thing and then someone tears it down in a couple of paragraphs, and you want to shout like, no, that's not, you didn't get it and all this. But a lot of times they'll like be saying absolutely valid points, but it's so hard to see it from, you know, the creator's point of view. And I just remember thinking, like, I went back to work after the high of Edinburgh, getting the UK premiere and red carpets and all that, and then going back to my 9 to 5 and just being like, I've like, my career's over, that's it, you know, I've had some bad reviews, therefore no one's ever going to want to work with me, because you only get like one you know, big debut, as it were. Like, that wasn't a debut, but it felt like the first film I was showing wide. But that's not the case, and then that fades, and the tiredness ebbs away, and then the itch comes back. And I think that's the difference between, like, I guess that's why people are filmmakers as opposed to well, any other job, is like, you just have the itch and you want to, it's just something that doesn't go away no matter how many times you're punished for wanting to do it.
It's like a total compulsion. It's like, it's often not even a choice, you've just kind of got to do it.
I'm sorry, you cut out there, what was it?
I was just saying it's more like a compulsion than anything else. You just, like, it's that kind of way you've got to do it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And I presume, like, well, every project is exhausting when you're working on films and stuff, but because with these, especially Death of a Vlogger, you're playing so many roles yourself, like being in the film, directing. You wrote the film as well, is that correct? You produced it, so you're wearing so many hats. I take it that's got to be really labour intensive, being in the film and also directing it. What does that feel like, being in your own piece?
It's kind of interesting actually, because everything about Death of a Vlogger was orchestrated in a way that would be minimum energy. Even though I did more roles, the way it was constructed, it was like actually a lot more relaxed. So the film that I tried to get off the ground in between Death of a Vlogger and Practical Guide, it was called Evil Spirits, and I spent about a year in pre-production on it. And it got within 2 weeks of shooting, and I had to pull the plug because everything was going so wrong. I mean, that's like a whole other story. It's like a long story, but that almost broke me. I just remember after I'd spent the day calling all of the cast and crew one by one, telling them that like the film was off. And then the last person I called was my mum, and I just like cried. I was like, this is so exhausted and broken. So that was my last. I'm never making a film again. And after a few months, I started to get the itch again. I rested up and I started writing, but I took it from a perspective where it needed to be easier, because so I think my first sort of thing after Evil Spirits fell apart was I wanted to fulfill one of three criteria. First one would be having a budget, like an actual, real budget. Second one would be having a full-time producer. And the third one would be not having a full-time job. And if I could fulfill one of those, then I would make another film. As it turned out, I just ignored all of that and made one anyway. But I changed it. I made it in such a way where I built it around my life. So I was really interested in like internet politics at the time. So I just read Mark Ronson's book, So You've Been Publicly Shamed. And I've been making videos through the internet for a while, and it was just something I knew a fair bit about, and it was like really close to my heart. So I started writing about that. But then it meant having a film that was all vlogs. It meant I could be the main character. I could shoot it in my flat. I could shoot it on my phone, and that was all part of the aesthetic of it. And it wasn't copying out, and it wasn't a cheat. Well, it was a cheat in terms of logistics, but it wasn't cheat in terms of the story. So all of that meant that I could start filming it and doing it piecemeal, just doing scenes with myself in it, just writing away. The script didn't have to be finished because it's a horror film, and used like certain set pieces I wanted. And it meant as well I could just be coming home from work one evening and just be like, do I want to film a scene tonight? And if I had the energy, it's like I could just do it, and if I didn't have to. So it meant I didn't have to organize a 2-week circus essentially, and I could just shoot it piecemeal it was over about 6 months I shot the film, and it meant I could also pick it up and drop it whenever I got tired, and I wasn't tied to it. So even though I was wearing way more hats than I normally would, not since like the Big Slick, it was actually quite relaxed. It's the most fun I've ever had making a film. It was quite chill.
Because you had like built-in flexibility around when you did it, on what kit you did it on, and That's interesting. So I suppose even the film that never happened, you must have learned a lot from it.
Yeah, tons. Even to the point where I was thinking about getting that back off the ground again recently, because all of the pre-production documents still exist, and I was like, I think I could actually do that now, even though it's the same conditions as before. But I changed my mind on it, but for different reasons.
Kind of off the back of that question, and kind of thinking about writing and committing yourself to making a no-budget film, it's a big commitment to involve yourself in that. As you said, you spent a year in pre-production on Evil Spirits, and you spent so much time working on Death of a Vlogger as well, and all the previous films. So how do you know if an idea or a script is one that you should fully commit to? How do you know this is something that I'm going to spend the next couple of years of my life making?
I guess sometimes you don't. Death of a Vlogger again was like unique in that it was a real soft run up. So the first 2 months of shooting, and by 2 months of shooting I mean 3 or 4 days probably, I was entirely ready to abandon it at any point, because I invested so little and I just wasn't really sure. Like, I love found footage and I love mockumentaries, but I'd never made one. And as well, like, having myself as the main character, I'm not an actor, and I was just watching the rushes as I shot them and just like kind of ready to go, nah, it's not working, I'll do something else. So I didn't commit to that till I was about 2 or 3 months into production, as it were. But I guess the more realistic answer for like most other productions is if you're a writer, then it will be that you just can't stop thinking about it. I think that's the key, that if you're like lying in bed at night and thinking ideas, or like every time you go out a walk is the first thing you think about, then that's an idea worth committing to. Yeah.
That's great. I think Kim and I were talking earlier to the students about coming up with ideas as well, and how you generate ideas. So I was wondering if you could maybe just talk about your own process for kind of come up with ideas. Like, is it kind of an active thing that you do, or is it a passive thing? Do you wait for ideas to come to you, or do you actively seek them out?
Yeah, it varies. I usually try and actively seek them out, but that is, the ideas part is probably the hardest part of writing. It's like the least work, but it's the hardest part, because you kind of need, I find it needs to be like an inspiration and you can't force that. So like long walks is like my advice for that, because then there's no distractions. Or at least I like to listen to music, and I think music's a good idea generator as well. It's less of a distraction and more of a, like, if it's a podcast you're listening to, you're not going to come up with anything then. But yeah, I like to go out long walks and listen to music, and sometimes it happens like perfectly. Like I can't remember why, but there was like maybe an email that had come in from a producer or something that was interested in kind of hearing what I had, and this is recently, and I didn't have any ideas that I was quite happy with, and I said to my partner, I was like, I'm going to go a walk, like just facetiously, like, I'm going to go a walk and I'll be back in half an hour with an idea. And this time it did work, and it was like a culmination of 2 older ideas that each of them on its own was like not a full thing, and then I realised if I joined them, then that was one thing, and got lucky that time. But other times you go out for an hour and come back, and it's just, you can't force it, but you can cultivate it, I guess.
That's interesting that you've had 2 ideas that themselves didn't really work, but when you've decided later on to combine them, that's working for you. And I guess it just goes to show, don't throw any idea out, because you never know what new perspective you might get on it at a later time.
Yeah, I think that's another one as well, is like keep all your ideas. So like I used to pitch on music videos quite a lot, and I've got a folder in my laptop somewhere that is just like all these rejected music video ideas. So just having something like that you can go back to, and just especially if it's been a while, because the way you think about things changes so often. So if it's been a year since you've looked at that old notebook, then go back and you might like find something that at the time didn't work, but now it might spark. You're like, oh, I really loved that, and now I know about such and such, and that would combine, and yeah.
Kim, have you got any questions you want to ask at the moment?
I look as if I'm being rude because mine's are on my phone, so I'm not sending messages. I wonder, well, what I noticed when I was watching the film is I kept feeling as if you would lead the audience, that was me watching it on my own, you would lead me into feeling like I knew what this was, and then it would shift again. So it was like this perception's reality would just slightly shift. I take it that was deliberate, that was a conscious decision, and I really enjoyed that, like being slightly tricked all the time of like misleading me up this path and then moving the kind of goalposts. Is that true, or do you think I read into that too much?
No, yeah, that was definitely what I was trying to do. I like films that are ambiguous, and I like films that take twists and turns, especially so many found footage films. They follow this like really kind of boring formula where it's just like nothing happens for 80 minutes, and then the last 10 minutes is crazy paranormal stuff going on. I mean, there's plenty of like amazing found footage films, but I like quite a plotty film. Like plot's kind of my main love for writing.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to kind of twist and turn the audience like that is something I really like strive to do. And I think as well with something like this film, there's the cinematography at times is quite simple because it's vlog based. It's just a static camera. So you need to, or one of the things I wanted to do was create an interest in the audience to look into the spaces of the frame. So they, in a sense, become like their own cinematographer. They're like looking around, trying to figure out where they should put their attention, and changing their perceptions of the audience is one of the ways of doing that.
One of the biggest questions I've got for you is about, if anybody's watching this, spoiler alert, the seance scene with the virtual reality camera, the 306, that was bizarre. How did you film that? It was so effective.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was literally filmed on a VR camera.
It was just like,
so,
was that done on a remote control, or who was operating it?
So it was operated essentially in post. So the way they work. So yeah, just for anyone that doesn't know how VR cameras work, that one in particular had two lenses, two fisheye lenses. So you've got your camera in the middle, one fisheye here, one fisheye there, and each one takes a 180-degree view of the room. And then you plug it into the software, and then it stitches it all together. And then when you look at this thing on like a flat plane, it's all completely warped, and it's like, just look at all kind of stretched arms and faces and things. But normally you would then put that into like a VR headset, and you can look around it. The software kind of matches it all so that you can actually look around the 3D space. But what you can also do is pop that in After Effects and have like a virtual camera, which would be essentially like your point of view. So then you can just crop it down to like your 16:9 frame and move that around as you want. So that was how we did it. So within the story of the film, it's the first VR seance. So in the world of the film, that's been released and people would be able to sit and like look around at their own will. But because it's being used for a documentary, we compressed it to the 16:9 kind of flat perspective, and I've controlled the perspective of it.
So you did that like keyframing the movement of the camera when you were in the edit.
Exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was really effective. I thought it was really, I really enjoyed that scene. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about, which I thought really made the film, was the casting. I thought that, how did you go about the casting? Because I thought all the actors were really good and really suited their parts and stuff like that.
Brilliant.
Really
Thanks.
Alice, is it Alison?
Hey, Alice, yeah.
And Erin, I thought they were particularly good. Obviously, I can associate better with the female characters, but
yeah,
they were particularly good.
Excellent. Well, so as I touched on earlier, I was the lead out of necessity and pragmatism. Then Erin, Annabelle Logan, I'd worked with on A Practical Guide to Spectacular Suicide. So that was just a traditional casting that we did for that last film. And we've been friends since and worked on a bunch of different projects together and stayed in touch, and we both like working with each other. It's just really easy and relaxed atmosphere, and we kind of we just get each other quite well. So she was happy to be on board. I actually wrote the role for her, so that's again one of the reasons why I think, or you might think it's well cast, is because I had her in mind the whole time. Although she's got so much range, it probably wouldn't have mattered. Then Alice is my partner, Joma West. So at first I had asked her to do a smaller role, just something that wasn't like a massively important role, but something we had cast for, and Joma had acted before in high school. I was like, oh, please, would you? And she said yes. And then, in fact, you'll probably remember this, Kevin, because you filmed Joma's first role as well.
Yeah, I remember shooting it.
Yeah, and I was just like, you've been holding out on me like that. You're like excellent. And so I asked if she would mind doing a bigger role. So that's how she ended up in the kind of like third lead or fourth lead or whatever. Yeah, like absolutely delighted with her performance. Mm-hmm. Then Paddy Kondraki, who played Steve, the ghost hunter. I've known Paddy for years, and he's a writer director. I like that you're just like laughing at when you're mentioning his name. That's excellent.
One of the characters where you just kind of feel that you know somebody like that, or somebody that you know online as an online presence like that.
Yeah, exactly. Known him for years. He's a writer director himself, but I've seen him act and stuff as well, and I've always thought he's like absolutely hilarious. So many of the lines are ad-libbed by him. And then there's Paddy O'Brien, who plays Dr. Watson. Again, I knew him from Practical Guide. He was in that, and was just amazing to work with, and he agreed to do a favour for this film. And yeah, the rest is just like friends and family. And like all the vloggers, I just put a post on Facebook asking all my friends and family if they'd record like a little 5-second, 10-second thing, like a single line, and yeah.
I'm just pausing just now because I can hear movement outside the door, and I'm trying to pretend I'm not here. I'm just going to quickly look at my other notes. Sorry about this.
That's right.
Graham, I may ask you on just now, in terms of just tips for no budget filmmaking, because a lot of the students will probably be coming at this from the same kind of perspective you were, not having like a kind of £1 million budget behind them. So what kind of tips do you have for people who are wanting to make no budget films?
Don't be afraid to produce. If it's anything like when I was younger, or even now actually, it's impossible to find a producer. But like everyone wants to write, everyone wants to direct, no one wants to produce, but don't be afraid to wear multiple hats. I've been producing out of necessity for about 14 years now. And the kind of cheekiest and like easiest way of defining producing is just keeping track of all the spreadsheets, essentially. Spreadsheets are your friend. Do as many spreadsheets as you need. They're so useful. Just break down the script into scenes, and break down the scenes into like what props you need, what cast you need, how many pages they are, what locations they'll need to be filmed in, how much time you think they'll take to film. Just spreadsheets for everything. And if you do like a ton of pre-production, it makes the shoot much easier. Shot list as well. Don't just turn up and like wing it. That's a terrible approach. Like preparation basically is your friend. The more prepared you are, the more time you'll have on set, and the more time you'll have to like fanny about on set and play. So get what you need and then experiment. Don't shy away from producing. It's not as boring as it seems.
It gives you control over everything that's happening, I suppose, in a kind of way that if you had someone else doing it for you. One that leads me on to one of my other questions was when you talk
also
about
the money as well.
Yeah, holding the purse. I was wondering about, so I wanted to ask you, this kind of is related about, well, you're talking about experimenting and playing on set or being organised. So see the effects that you were doing with the props and stuff, I was really impressed with them. I wondered if that was something that cost a lot of money, how much planning had went into that. You don't need to reveal like a magician how they were done, but some of the effects I thought were fantastic, and I was presuming that they were done on a low budget because of the nature of the film. Could you talk a wee bit about some of the effects in the film?
Yep, they're all done in no budget as well. The budget roughly for Death of a Vlogger was $2,500, I think. And the effects were all not all done by me, but all kind of constructed by myself. And sometimes would be Joma was like a huge help in being the kind of orchestrator behind the scenes who would like, you know, pull the wire or whatever it was that needed done. Yeah, I just approached it, like I said, I don't have a background effects, but I just approached it from a practical sort of way. So it was literally like, okay, so I need to levitate myself off the ground. How would you do that? And then just approach it from that sort of problem solving way. And so like for that one for example, at first I was like, okay, right, so if I sit in a doorway and I frame out the top, I can put a pull-up bar up, and then I can have a hidden harness, and someone can be on the other side of the door pulling the rope. And I was like, all right, cool. That's how you levitate a person. So tried that, and then realized that it's actually pretty impossible for one person to pull up another person like that. You just kind of get to this point of balance, and the two of you are just standing there like, okay, right, didn't work. And then it's like, okay, so what does that mean then? I was like, well, maybe I can do it in After Effects. Like I can stand up and I can put my hands up on the pull-up bar, and then I can like lift myself up, and then I can like green screen my hands coming down by my side. And I was like, that could work. So I tried that, but then like having your hands lift at the same time as your body, and it's weird because like I put that all into After Effects, and then the body would go whoop, and then the arms would come up, and they like try to time them, and they're clearly disembodied. Like, okay, that didn't work. So I went back to the rope idea. I was like, oh, what about a pulley? And anyway, went on and on like that, and it was just iterative because I didn't know what I was doing until I got something that worked, and that was it. And that goes back to the kind of no budget filming thing is if you're doing stuff like that, then test it before you get to set. Because if I was shooting that in a practical, in a standard kind of way, we'd have got to set, couldn't film it, and then you'd be like, okay, well, fuck, we need to get everyone back for another day. So yeah, like I said, it was quite an easy shoot because I had the luxury of being able to take as many attempts as I wanted.
Kevin, have you got more questions?
Yeah, I've got one more that I really want to ask you, Graham. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a couple of years ago you were trying to hit 100 rejections. There's something like that, wasn't there? You were trying to like amass rejections for some reason. Can you talk about that and how you deal with rejection in this kind of crazy industry?
Yeah, so that was an article I read probably about 4 years ago now, and the title of the article was something like "Why I Aim for 100 Rejections a Year." And the long story short is, if you've had 100 rejections in a year, it means you've sent out 100 applications, and it's a way of framing the negativity around that into a kind of more positive light, so that when a rejection comes in, you're like, cool, I'm one step closer to my goal, as opposed to like another rejection. And I think it's absolutely true. Like, just apply for everything you can, because you never know what's going to come out of anything. I've had opportunities come out of the weirdest places, and like I I got my agent because I attended a GMAC Christmas party, and I remember that night I was like, nah, can't really be bothered going to this. Like, I mean, I love GMAC and I love Christmas parties. I was just tired that night. I was like, no, I should go. And then, yeah, I got my agent almost as a direct result of being there. So the 100 rejections thing is like that. It's just like take every opportunity that is available and you don't know what's going to come back. Like if your success rate is 5% and you get 5 acceptances in a year, that could be like a festival, or it could be a sales agent, or it could be a writing competition, or like who knows what, could be a commission. Like, but keeping track of them as well, it's nice. It's in our spreadsheet. So
I just started doing it, actually. I've started this year. I think because I've been bored and I've had nothing else to do. So I'm like, I'm going to track all my rejections from this year. But I guess
tell you where I'm for this year. Where I'm at. Last year I managed like 98. It's the closest I've ever got.
Ooh.
So far this year, 51 rejected, 8 accepted, 17 pending.
That's really good.
It's not too bad. It's pretty happy. So yeah, I don't think I'll hit 100 this year either, because we're over halfway through the year, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're
in September now.
Yeah.
So,
need more rejections.
Reject me. In terms of kind of future work as well, man. Like, I guess in two situations, you know, one situation you get funding to make a film, and then that's great, you want to do that. But if you don't, are you still going to keep on making like low budget, no budget features anyway? Is that something that are you just going to make films regardless? Because again, you've got that itch.
Yeah.
I'm never making another film again.
Yeah, I'm not quite there. It's like ups and downs, but I think that, short answer, yes, I'm always going to make films. I don't know what form that's going to take, but I'm always going to make films. I hope that it's not always no budget, and mostly so that I can actually pay people. Like, I don't mind doing it for the love of it, and like the people that I work with generally don't either, but still, like, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of like a lot of your time more than anything else, and it's just, you know, the people that I've been working with that have been so kind to me and given me so many favors and so much of their time, like, they deserve money. they deserve to get paid. So that's more the thing. It's just like the longer you go on not paying people, the worse it feels. So that's my main kind of hesitancy about or hesitation about continuing with no budget films.
That's a fair point. Kim, do you have any other questions?
I think that's me. I can't think of anything right now. I suppose maybe just a top tip to the students, but I suppose every answer you've gave has probably been top tips. So I think you spoke about a lot of that, and just, you know, produce your own work, and you've got to be in it to win it in terms of applying for stuff. Is there anything else you'd like to say to young budding filmmakers that are out there?
I think if you're making shorts, then do whatever you care about. Like, write what you want to write and make what you want to make, and be careful about who you give your time to. But I think, you know, the more you do at a young age, the better, because it'll just expand your network and you'll know more people. But if you're going to do a no budget feature, make sure it's a genre feature. So, and by genre, I really mean action, sci-fi, and particularly horror. Because if you go and make a comedy or a drama or a romance, then you're not going to sell your film and nobody's going to watch it. You might do an okay festival run, but that's about it. but unless you've got like cast or high production values, then yeah, you're not going to sell your film. But things like horror particularly, you can sell it without having a name cast in it, and you can sell it without high production values, as long as you like have a good story and it's well told and it's not inept, as long as it's like well put together, then you could get a distributor on board. Like I said, like my last film was not my cheapest, but it wasn't my most expensive, and that's the only one it's sold, and it's in large part due to the fact that it's horror. My drama comedy that I made, that premiered at Edinburgh Film Festival, didn't get a distributor because it was a drama comedy with no cast in it. So yeah, think about audience and think about the market. That is just features though. Shorts you can do wherever you want, because that's all about festivals anyway. But yeah, I think that's my last piece of advice.
That's great. Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate your time and giving the students some cracking advice.
Nice. Cheers, man.